Hey everybody, and welcome. My name is Sam. I serve as a worship leader here at New Life, and I'm here with
Pastor Joe.
Pastor Joe. He serves as our lead pastor, and we wanted to have a conversation around just the mass incidents that have happened over such a short period of a week. A lot of evil that's happened, a lot of things that maybe we can't explain and we don't know what's going on, but we're feeling things in our heart. And the reality is that we can't just speed by them. As people, we have to respond to the grief that happens in our heart. And so we wanted to do that pastorally in love and care. Just some of the things that have happened this week is there's been multiple school shootings. There's been a murder of a young woman on a train. There was a murder of Charlie Kirk, as well as just as recently, a young man was hung in Mississippi. There's just so much going on that we as Christians, we need to be aware of the evil that's happening in the earth. And so we're going to address that today in a short conversation. But before we do, why don't we just pray? Jesus, I thank you so much that you are the King on the throne. And we praise you that you are in control, that you are a sovereign Lord who knows all and sees all, and that you are the one who takes what the enemy means for evil and turns it for good. That's what your word says. So Jesus, we come before you today that we could just have a simple conversation, that we could share our hearts, and that you would be glorified in all of this. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. So Joe, I think the first thing that I would want to just ask is, like, who does this affect?
People.
Right.
And in particular, I think people who are paying attention. I have friends all across the political spectrum and who are disturbed for a whole different set of reasons. And I don't know anybody right now who's paying attention to what's happening across our nation, who's like, hey, yeah, things are great.
Right.
And so I think a lot of people are just deeply disturbed, and they're trying to put words to what that is.
Yeah. And so a lot of things that I've heard are just honestly like lies that are swirling around. And I think what would be good is to just say, like, what lies do people often believe about God or in the church in moments like this?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest that I run into in pastoral care is just this sense that God must be absent. And if evil is present, that means God can't be in the mix. And that's an understandable feeling, understandable thought. But the reality is that God knows exactly what's happening. Yeah. And so I think reaching for what is his perspective and how can we align ourselves with him. Another one of the lies, I think, is that everything bad that's happening in the world is because of a particular set of people. And I have lots of thoughts and ideas about lots of things, but if all of the sad and all of the mad that I feel is just aimed at a certain set of people, then I'm not going to glorify God in my response.
Yeah, and I think based on the conversations that I've had, there's a lot of conversations about, like, I don't know what to do with this anger, with this hurt. And I think that would be a great kind of topic for you to spread on, is just like, what do I do with this? What am I feeling, and how do I handle it?
Yeah, so one, I think it's really important to be aware and name, like, what is happening.
Yeah.
You know, if you're angry, just like say it. Like, hey, like, I'm torqued.
Yeah.
I'm angry that this happened. I'm angry that people are celebrating the murder of a father and husband. It's just bizarre to see some of the more grotesque responses in any one of the tragedies that we observe, and to understand that God cares about what's happening in you. And first, being aware. And second, then just taking ownership of saying, like, now it's up to me to decide, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
One of the scriptures that comes to mind, often for me, is that anger does not produce the righteousness of God. And so I can very easily slip into bitterness and this reactivity that just is going to just kind of continue this cycle.
I was so shocked when I first saw multiple things happening, and it just stoked in me just the reality of the exposure of trauma that we can experience just from a screen.
Yeah.
And I think we have to be really aware of that, and we have to even grieve someone maybe we never even met, and we have to just sit there and go like, as a human, I just watched something evil, and I have to process that. I have to deal with that.
Yeah.
I think that's tough, and it can cause things in our soul that we're not aware of. And so another question I just have for you is like, in the midst of tragedy, right? We're suffering, we're feeling things in our soul. How does Jesus meet us in this suffering, not just even on a personal level, but also in our world? What does he do?
Jesus revolutionizes the way we can respond to evil. We can't ignore Jesus' response to the evil that was inflicted upon him. On the cross, he said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And in the midst of unfathomable suffering, Jesus showed us that there's a way to move forward, even as we take action, tangible action in this world against what is obviously evil. We have to make sure that we maintain the peace of God that surpasses understanding. And with Christ, this is possible. I don't think that's possible without Christ. I think if I didn't have Christ and I looked at all of this evil in the world, I would go a lot of directions that were really harmful to me and to the people around me. I would just become angry and bitter and cynical, and I would start to label different groups of people as like, they're on my list, they're not on my list. And all of this would just continue, and it would lead to just a really bad outcome in me. And the hard part, I think, of being exposed to this trauma so persistently, because we have these magical little screens that put all of this in front of our faces all the time, is that we, in our concern for the evil that's so obviously happening, we can get lost in that very quickly, and lost in our own response, lost in justifying our own outbursts and all sorts of things we don't want to drift into.
Right. And it's so good to remind ourselves that we're not just talking about a personal opinion, but we're also talking about a scriptural ideal right now of like what Paul wrote in Romans, that we're not just battling against flesh and blood, but we're battling against spiritual principalities in our nation. And we're battling not only just, is there a evil in our world in America, but there's evil in the whole world that we experience. And I think that was one of the biggest things I wanted to share with people, is that this should awaken our eyes to just evil in general, so that we can pray against what the enemy means for evil.
As we see evil in front of us, sometimes we resonate with certain aspects of what happened because of how we feel personally related to the tragedy, the victim, the people involved. For instance, when we saw the terrible murder happen of that young lady on the train, we have a daughter who lives there, who lives in Charlotte, who's a blonde-haired young woman, just like this blonde-haired young woman. And she said to us, "Mom and Dad, that's why I don't take the light rail." And in a moment, I thought, this could have been my child. That is someone's child. And when we look at school shootings, we think, my children go to school, there's schools in my community, how could I not be concerned for all of these people? We kind of put ourselves into, and I think rightly so, into the shoes of those people who are directly suffering. And the question then, as these things are so deeply concerning to us for so many personal reasons, the question becomes, what do we do with that, right?
Right.
I would propose that when we see evil in the world, we have to evaluate and say, okay, why is this happening? And it's tempting to just say, you know what? There are laws and political things that need to happen for this to be fixed. And I'm sure that there are.
Yeah.
But I bring the response back to myself and I say, how can I respond to this internally? Like, how do I evaluate what's in my heart? How do I evaluate what's happening in my home? How do I evaluate what's happening in my church, in my community? And long term, we're in ministry because we believe that the ultimate fix to all of these issues is Jesus Christ. And there, all of the other things should be changed. But we've got to boil it down to, what are we responsible for right here, right now?
Yeah. And we have to have hope, right? Like it's hard to say at times like this when we feel this way, but we do have a hope in Jesus. And so I would love for you to just expand a little bit more when we're feeling all these things and we know we can't just sit on them. How do we turn to the hope that is Jesus? What does that look like for us?
I looked down a lot of different roads when I was young and kind of looked and said, how can I affect the most change in the world? And I think God calls people to all sorts of different paths, vocations, careers, and we should do all of the things we do in order to glorify God and bring His kingdom into this world. So whether God's called you to be a plumber or be a lawyer or whatever, you can serve God's will in this world. And but for every Christian, every follower of Jesus, you can exert tremendous change in this world by submitting yourself to the Lordship of Jesus Christ. And I'm convinced that the greatest change that happens in this world is through people who have taken all of these different inputs and they have said, you know what? The best move I can make is to submit myself to the Lordship of Jesus and be transformed by Him into the kind of person who brings about change in this world through my heart, my home, my relationships, my street, my community, my church, and takes ownership to say, I'm going to be a person of peace in this world because the God of peace is giving me supernatural peace.
Right.
And aside from all of the other necessary next steps and what needs to happen in our nation, I think starting with us and saying, how can I personally become the kind of person who affects change in this world?
Yeah. And I'm acutely aware that there will be Christians who watch this video, but also people who maybe have been Christians and aren't anymore, or maybe someone who's never been introduced to Jesus in their life. For those people, just kind of going off what you just said as well, I think addressing those people, even talking about like the idea that like whatever you're feeling, you're welcome. Like the ability to come and find rest, right? Jesus said, all those who are weary, come and find rest in me. How do we just speak to them for a moment?
Yeah. This is what we have dedicated our lives to. And not just like me and you and some leaders at the church, but every believer in Jesus who has found that peace that they can have in Him, a peace that surpasses understanding, means my circumstances do not say I should have peace right now. But I can access the peace of God that comes through peace with God. And so if you have peace with God, and you can have that through Jesus Christ, who paid for your sins on the cross, who made a way to bridge the divide between unholy me and a holy God, then you can be the kind of person who is transformed inside in order to become the person who is a transforming force in this world. Sam, I wonder if you could field a question. Some of our folks who are either new Christians or maybe they've been a Christian a long time are wondering, how do I pray in response to everything I'm observing?
My heart goes towards pray without ceasing and rejoice in all things. And I remember you speaking on this one time and saying, that's a tough truth for me. Like, okay, rejoice in all things, but not for all things. And so though we do not rejoice for the evil, we rejoice in the true triumphant King who will make good out of this. And so my heart is for everyone to pray without ceasing, knowing that prayer is an intimate connection with the Lord, that we're speaking directly to him. We bring our burdens to him and he hears us and he responds with his will, right? Maybe not mine, but also it will help us remove ourselves from the bitterness and hopefully move us into love. Love for our neighbor, love for our enemy. And even though I may not want to do it, right?
Yeah, it's an incredible spiritual discipline, and a lot happens internally when we actually do what Jesus commanded, which is to love our enemies and pray for those who persecute us. So that's always our next step.
Joe, we talked a lot about like what we're dealing with emotionally, but the reality is like we're also dealing with this physically. So how do we, when we're feeling a lot of this anger, when we're feeling all the things we're feeling, how do we also respond physically?
Yeah, really practical terms. I've talked to some folks and advised that they disengage from social media, which is probably always a good prescription, but to engage not only with the Lord, but with people, with actual people. Sometimes we're exposed to too much. Sometimes our bodies, our heads and our hearts can only take so much information, stimulation before we go into a state of overwhelm. And we can go sideways and veer into anger, and we could veer into fear. And if that's where we're stuck, if that's where we're saying, we've got to do something to interrupt that cycle. So disengage. The world's not going to stop if they don't hear your opinion or you don't hear 1,000 other people's opinions. Disengage from social media, engage with the Lord, engage with real people. I have this theory that the more digital we get, the more AI makes us second guess is what we're seeing real. The offline, in-person interactions between real people, like Jesus engineered into the life of the church, is going to be the remedy for so much of what we're experiencing. So to actually engage in the body of Christ with other people who are on this journey that are asking the same questions you are, that's just good medicine.
As we kind of finish this video out, is there anything else that's kind of pressing on your heart that you would say, I just feel like I have to share this?
I just don't want anybody to give in to the overwhelm that leads to a folding inside of yourself and a hardening of your heart. Because whether you're angry with all the people that you think are to blame, or you're angry with the status quo, or you're angry with the political system, or you're angry with whatever, if you give in to bitterness and you give in to hopelessness and cynicism, then that is what continues and accelerates a society going like this. And what we want to do is, Jesus said to Christians, he said to his followers, you are the light of the world. And for us, now more than ever, to, in our workplace conversations, in our talks over the fence with our neighbors, to be able to be the light of Jesus in this world by being lit up by Jesus is now more essential than ever.
Well, we want to thank everybody for joining us and being a part of this conversation so that you could hear our hearts on this topic. And the reality is brokenness and dismay has been in our world for a long time, ever since the fall of Adam and Eve, from the walking with God and then falling into sin. Like sin entered evil into our world. And so whatever you're feeling, whatever brokenness you might be feeling, know that you can take that to the Lord. His word tells us that we can cast our cares upon him. We can place our burdens upon him, and that his yoke is easy and his burden is light. So no matter how many times you prayed, whether it's never or 100,000 million, whatever times you prayed, Go and take it to the Lord and receive hope from him, because he is the only hope we have. We love you guys. Thanks for joining us.
Love you guys.